Greetings and welcome to the Ripple Effect. I am Selena. So, today's topic is going to be a little bit in depth. Um, I was looking through social media, I think a couple days ago, could have been a week ago, and they were talking about a pastor who gave a woman herpes. So, we're going to be talking about STDs and getting our prayer closet, of course. But there are so many life lessons from this particular story. So, if you don't know the background of the story, I'm going to try to recall the lady's interview and then what I ascertained from that and what we can learn from her story. So, first of all, she's very brave. She is very brave for telling her story and what happened to her. So, she talks about how this gentleman, they met on social media on Facebook, and how he was messaging her. And then one of the key words she used, she said that he had messaged her and said that he had been watching her for a while and that he was a fan of hers. And I thought that terminology put her on a pedestal. Red flag. Okay? So already I'm sure she felt, well, okay then. He's a fan of mine. Like, look at me. Okay. So she goes to say, like, how eventually they started talking on social media, then it moved to talking on the telephone, and then progression, they end up getting into a relationship. And she said, I think 2 years. I don't remember if she recalled how long the relationship lasts, but within the 2 years, they became sexually active. Now, she did state that she didn't know that he was a pastor from the beginning. What were y'all talking about on social media and on the phone? Like, isn't that like one of the questions people ask when they first meet? Like, hey, how do you do? Like, what do you do for a living? What do you do for a living? So I'm curious, like, what were they really talking about if it wasn't getting background on who they are as individuals? So she's stating that, she's from a ministry background, whatever that means, because there are a lot of ministries in the world. So she was saying that, that wasn't a big deal to her because her family is from, ministry or what have you. And then she also stated, okay, that they exchanged their thoughts and beliefs and their morals. They exchanged them. So if he's a pastor and you guys are talking about faith and morals, premarital sex never came up? That never just came across the conversation? I find that hard to believe. Now, we all know there's 3 sides to a story: his side, her side, and the truth. So, for her to say that they exchanged those things in conversation, yet premarital sex never came up, and he's a pastor. Okay? Now, those type of individuals are held to high morals, whether you like it or not. If, capital I, capital F, capital I, capital F, you guys, if you're called by God, because some men like to be in leadership because of their arrogance. So if he was called by God, and you guys are talking about faith and morals, waiting for covenant never came up, and the fact that he's a pastor and you opened up your cinnamon sticks for someone who comes from a ministry background, it's going to sting a little bit. It's going to sting, but I'm going to say, what did you think was going to happen when you play around with God the Father? What did you think was going to happen, sis? Now, look, I'm not passing judgment, so, I'm not saying that. But what I will say, you can't mock God. There's a scripture that tells us, be not mocked. Whatever a man sows, he will reap. If you plant a tomato seed, watermelon's not going to sprout. They're not going to sprout, neither peaches, plums, bananas, peas, pineapples. What you going to get? The seed you planted. So if you're out there playing around on the devil's territory, because y'all weren't in the Lord, okay? I hate to say it that way, but you were not. And we have to be careful, ladies. If capital I, capital F. There is a man who's in the church, okay? Now, we're going to talk about gentlemen in the church, maybe outside of church in another video, but talking about the men who are within the church. It is a red flag, okay, when he's a pastor and there are several steps that you have to take before you become like the way you came out the womb, but about naked. There are several steps that happen in between there. So in the midst of your shirt falling off, oops, there goes you know what happens. When that happens, your shirt came off, your pants came off, your skirt came up, whatever it was, panties down, zipper down, whatever happened in between those steps, you didn't feel the unction of the Holy Spirit. You didn't feel like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe this is wrong because he's a pastor. And I'm not understanding if you guys said you were talking for 2 years, his lifestyle never came up, and she said, if I'm not mistaken, that she attended his church. Oh my goodness. So, when we are entertaining men in the church, and who knows, we'll just say hypothetically there's a gentleman interested in you and he wants to have Bible studies with you. Let's have Bible studies. Let's talk to the Lord. Make sure it's more than you, him, and Jesus, or whatever kind of spirit might be there. Let it be in a group or in a facility, at a park, out in the open, but the moonlit shouldn't be out. And all of a sudden, y'all want to open up the King James Version. You're setting yourself up for failure. There are steps that you want to take. Yes, there's nothing wrong with learning together with another individual. But if you feel your heart palpitating whenever you see this gentleman carrying his Bible, strong in the church, smelling good, looking like God created him, that's when you need to pump your brakes. You need to get in your prayer closet and ask the Lord to help you. Wait. Take the desires that you have, box them up, and save them for covenant. Because the enemy comes like an angel of light. He comes to deceive us. So along the way, I don't know for sure, but there will have been signs and warnings that something about this individual is not right. Because can you imagine, they bumping and a humping, and then he up in the pulpit preaching a sermon. The level of disrespect this individual has to get up in the pulpit after having premarital sex, and she attended his church, trying to lead the flock of God that they have been entrusted with. Oh man, I'm surprised they ain't busting the flames right there. Just spontaneous combustion. I'm not surprised that wouldn't have happened. Because when you're out there playing with the Lord, you cannot expect something good to come from it. And so when I looked at her and the disposition she had on herself. Now, one thing I noticed, okay, that she had a pair of red bottoms on. And to me, this is just my personal opinion. You know, if you don't like it, she made sure she flashed that bottom up whenever the camera was over there, so we could see that she was wearing red bottoms with her all white outfit on. Now, if there was a little more funding spent on mind reconstruction and development and less on fashion and what you look like in the streets, things may have turned out differently. Oops, I said it. Okay, I'm sorry, that might have been harsh, but we have to be careful, ladies, when we're so busy working on the external and our minds are all crazy. We haven't healed from our child wounds. We haven't healed from our last relationship. We still holding on to anger, bitterness, and regret. But we busy out there having our face beat, weave all down our back, whatever two-piece. I don't know what you call it because I'm really not too familiar with that. But I'm just saying, nothing wrong with it, sis, okay? Nothing wrong with it because I'm rocking this today. Nothing wrong with it, or the, natural. Whatever you're doing on the external, make sure you're taking as much time, if not more, to work on the internal part that you struggle with. And as always, I say, make sure you get in your prayer closet, because I don't know how people do it without Jesus. I really don't, because that has been my saving grace. That is what helped me to get through so many different trials and tribulations in my life. Be able to overcome toxic relationships, over different things that I have seen in my life. It was by God himself. And when we're out there representing Jesus Christ, God the Father, and we're saying, you know, hey, we got Christian on our forehead. Yeah, there's a double standard. I'm going to go ahead and say it out there. No, it's not fair. No, people don't like it, but it is what it is. And so if you don't want to be labeled a Christian or a hypocrite, then don't go out there blasting and saying, you know, hey, I'm a Christian, and then go live your life contrary to what a Christ-like individual is supposed to live their lives. Because for them to come from ministry and for him to be a pastor, this type of behavior is unacceptable. And let me be clear, I understand that we are all humans and that we will make mistakes. But like I said, it wasn't until after they had already been in a relationship, premarital sex had already entered the relationship, that's when she contracted the STD. It wasn't like, oops, the first time after 3 pumps, now all of a sudden she has an STD. Now, that could be somebody's case, I'm sure. There are people who are watching this channel, it was your first time out there, and now your life is forever changed. And so when you have an opportunity, when God has given you grace, when you're outwardly committing sin, you're just outwardly stealing, lying, cheating, do whatever you're doing wrong, you don't care about it. And God has given you grace, and you don't get caught, or you don't necessarily feel the ramifications of everything. Understand that is God's grace, and it's also a warning. But we are so conditioned in this world to do what we want whenever we feel like it. And if consequences happen, now we mad. Now we upset. Like, how dare this happen to me? No. You are reaping what you have sown. And I'm not saying that she deserves this type of STD that is permanent. There's no cure for that. That's her label for the rest of her life. I'm not saying she deserved it. What I'm saying is, what did you think was going to happen when you were playing it out there with the Lord, with his name? Imagine the people in his church. Imagine that. Now, they had showed a little clip from him preaching a sermon, and it looked like a good-sized church or whatever. Think about the little baby Christians in the church still trying to find their way, and this was their representation of a godly man. And the ramifications, the ripple effect that he has issued in his congregation, or for those who have seen this story. Because if you're supposed to be a man of God, not saying that he is supposed to be perfect, however, okay, out overtly committing sin, premarital sex from a pastor, is something that should not be tolerated. His church should be given over to somebody else. I don't know, the deacon, the elder, close the doors, because he should be sitting himself down in his prayer closet, getting his life together. And I think for some of us, we struggle with wanting to take the time to heal, wanting to take the time for God to work on us. And like I said, from the young lady who, and I don't know how old she is, she looked old enough to know better. Okay, so look well in her 30s, if not 40s. And if she's 50, come on now. But old enough to know that having premarital sex with a pastor was the wrong decision. It was. There was nothing that was ever going to be right about that in the morning or the noontime or in the evening. That was never going to be right. And the fact that she was so to me, it seemed like a little bit of arrogance. Like, where like, I come from ministry, so him being a pastor was like no big deal, and it wasn't like a big thing for her. And to say like we talked about morals and we talked about faith, it's like that makes it even worse. It would have been better if like, nah, we never really talked about that. We just talked about clothes and what type of food he like, and what is he doing on the weekend. It would have been better you said that, because then you would have been ignorant, of what was going on. But you knew. And I have told my story about gentlemen who have been in the church who have made passes, or to me, very inappropriate. I've had a married deacon who has hit on me. Now I mean hit physically, black eyes. Oh no. Made a pass at me, something flirtatious, when they have been married. And having to pray about that and putting an immediate stop to it. Like, if you're going to sin, you're going to burn and bust hell's gates wide open, be it by yourself. Not with me. Like, if that's something that you're going to do, you're not about to rope me in it. And some men have that spirit upon them of an adulterous nature. But we ladies, we can't be willing participants. Come on now. I'm shocked at the level of women who openly, and now I'm tangenting, but still, who openly participate and be in a relationship with a married man. I don't understand that. If you know, if you don't know, that's something else, but investigate. Investigate. There's nothing wrong with doing your research when you're because she said she met him on social media. And social media is a very, the devil is in the details, okay? So that's an easy way for people to come into our lives because we think it's something innocuous. It's okay, it's just social media, no big deal. But investigate. How could you not know what he does for a living? Why won't you try to figure that out? And then figure out what type of pastor is he? Is he living by the things he preaches from the pulpit? And when you're meeting someone, why not find out who they really are? Not just what they're telling you. I have learned, my goodness, I have learned that I need to listen with my eyeballs. That's right. Pause it. Rewind. Tap it back if you need to listen with my ojos, with my eyes. Because people can say a lot of things sweet in your ear, but the whole while they're living life something polar opposite than that. And we have to be careful of that. But some of us are so desperate for a relationship and a man. And some of us think that having a pastor just elevates us to a level. There are some of us who think that, having a man of God all of a sudden, your first lady and your life is just better than everyone. It's not. You're still a human being. So we have to be careful when we are involving ourselves in a relationship and we're not doing our due diligence. And I'm not saying you necessarily need to have a private eye unless that's your type of thing. You need a Sherlock Holmes. But do your work so we are held accountable for those things. If we are investigating and saying, hey, is this really true? Does he really work where he says he works? Wherever that may be his job. I'm not saying you have to pull up. But you might need to investigate just to make sure this person is telling you the truth so the wool is not pulled over your eyes. And when we find out the truth, there are so many women who be like, I found out he was married and I stayed. I know I should have left, but I stayed. And right then, the Lord has opened up your eyes and given you a warning. You had a fork in the road. And you can choose to end the relationship, do what's right, come out of that sin. But there are a lot of people who stay. And matter of fact, there was a friend of mine. I usually use the word friend. I'll say an associate. And she told me that she was sleeping with a married man. And she was upset that his wife was calling her phone, calling her house, looking for her husband, wanting to fight her and all these things. Now, at the time, I did not have the level of conviction on me that I have now. I was so young. I might have been in my early 20s when I found this out. And it was just like, wow, girl, that's really crazy. I can't imagine living that type of lifestyle. But I didn't really read her excuse me, her card like I would now. Because you are in outright sin and you know better. And if you think something good is going to come out that relationship, think again. And so, why would you be with a man who has already chosen covenant with someone else? And like I said, I know I'm tangenting from the previous topic about a woman catching an STD from a pastor, but this is a warning to some of us who are out there living in overt sin when God has given us a warning. And like I said, at the end of my marriage, it came out that my husband had committed adultery. Now, there was a woman who contacted me it might have been after the separation. And, help me, Lord, I'm getting warm talking about this topic. And it was like through a text message, and she was telling me something about my husband or what have you. And then when I told him about it, he was upset. And his excuse was, I don't know how she got my phone number. How she got my phone number, meaning me. And I'm like, that's what you took from the conversation? Like, you have been caught out, okay? She telling me things about you that I didn't care to know. But I'm glad she did it. While she was being that side chick, trying to be messy, trying to, destroy, be a home wrecker, as they say, she did her part. And I'm grateful for that, because everything that I thought was going on, I was proven right. And it just gave me my freedom. But you have some women who are happy being content, being second and not chosen, and being very messy about it. And so let this be a warning to you. If you're out there living in that sin, or living in the sin of overt premarital sex, to come out of that, to get in your prayer closet. I met a young lady who was telling me about her journey, about coming out of that, and how she had been practicing abstinence, and she had been doing it for almost a year, what have you. And I was so proud of her, because she was telling me how at one point in time she didn't even think she could get there. And so it is a testament as to what God can do for us when we are willing to make that decision. But if you're still around with your sneaky link, or being someone's work wife and doing things you have no business, and you're not trying to come out of sin, there are going to be some consequences, some of which may not just be you. Because there are some women who have creeped around and have produced children. But I'm not going to get into that, because I feel like that's going to be a touchy subject and some people might get offended. So, with that said, as always, ladies, thank you so much for watching.